It's your boy, Uncle Fred, back in the house, back in the saddle one more again. Got content for you today. Man, please hit that like, comment, and subscribe. Become a part of the Uncle Fred Sports Experience. Guarantee you will not be disappointed. So, here's a rundown of what we're going to be talking about today. Uh, is this deja vu? Because it seemed like 365 days ago, I was right here with this same story. Tom Brady retires again. And we're going to talk about that. And we're going to run down his accolades and all that sort of stuff. And then where, I think he ranks and all this kind of stuff. And then other coaches that made some moves. Teams hired their coaches today. And we'll talk about and then the coaching vacancies that are still open. We're going to talk about that. Then, as it relates to the Cowboys news, which y'all talking about, well, we got a new play caller. Yeah, it ain't what you think, but we'll talk about that. And then Dak might get an extension. Don't y'all jump on me right away. There's a reason for that. We gonna talk about that. Cowboys also hired them an offensive line coach. We'll talk about who he is and what his resume, his pedigree, where he comes from, and that sort of thing. And he coached with Landry. Yeah, yeah, seems like that is the case. And also, we interviewed an OC to replace Kellen Moore, and then I want to run through some of the players, or excuse me, some of the coaches that I would like to see the Cowboys take a look at for that OC position. So we'll talk about that and much more. Let's get it, people. Let's talk. Let's talk.
Two times on the beat, bitch.
What's good, people? It's your boy Uncle Fred back in the house one more again. And let's go ahead and get started. Like I said, it was deja vu. I think it was like February 1st or January 30th or whatever last year. And I was right here and I was giving you the same thing, and it's almost like Groundhog Day. But about 7 o'clock this morning, we both woke up and we got this message right here.
Good morning, guys. I'll get to the point right away. I'm retiring for good. I know the process was a pretty big deal last time, so when I woke up this morning, I figured I'd just press record and let you guys know first. So it won't be long-winded. You only get one super emotional retirement essay, and I used mine up last year. So I really thank you guys so much, to every single one of you, for supporting me, my family, my friends, my teammates, my competitors. I could go on forever. There's too many. Thank you guys for allowing me to live my absolute dream. I wouldn't change a thing. Love you all.
Love you too, Tom. So once again, Tom Brady retires from the NFL. Somehow I feel this time he meant it, and I just think that this time it's official. Tom Brady is mentioned many times as the greatest of all time. Many have called him the greatest football player. I'm not going to go quite that far because I never put quarterbacks in the category of players, best player. But quarterback kind of in a group all by themselves, in my opinion. That's just me. I still got Jerry Rice, the best player that's ever played. Jerry Rice, and then probably Lawrence Taylor's right behind him. But that's just me. But as far as quarterbacks are concerned, man, I can't go along with it because when you look at some of his statistics, uh, goodness gracious, let's look at him. Yardage. He holds the record for yardage. He threw for 89,214 yards, leading 90,000 yards. 649 touchdown passes. When somebody gets 300 touchdown passes, you're like, ooh, they had 300 touchdown. Man, they ain't even halfway to where he was at, right? Shoot. 649 touchdown pass wins, 286 wins. You see coaches that have coached all their lives, but his career is about as long as some people have coached, 23 years, right? He's got 35 playoff wins. There are teams, I don't even think the Cowboys got 35 playoff wins. They got 5 Super Bowls because he's got 2 more Super Bowls than they have. But I'm just saying, he went to 48 playoff games. He's played in 48 playoffs, so he was 35-13. He went to 48 playoff games. Now, if you look at the old metric of the NFL seasons when they were 16 games, that's 3 additional seasons just for playoffs, right? So that's like he played 26 seasons, 23 regular seasons, and then 3 years worth of playoff games. Okay. And he went to a record 10 Super Bowls, won 7. In the Super Bowls, he threw for 3,039 yards, which means he threw for like 304 yards per Super Bowl. And he holds the record for most yards ever in a playoff game, which 505, which he registered against the Philadelphia Eagles in a loss, 41-33 in Super Bowl 52. Okay. He's a 3-time league MVP, a 5-time Super Bowl MVP, 10-time Super Bowl appearance, 7-time wins. He's the only person to win a Super Bowl in 3 different decades, in the 2000s, the 2010s, and the 2020s. Tom Brady, again, retires. Now, I don't feel that he is the best football player, but he is, no question about it, the most accomplished. He has accomplished anything that he ain't accomplished ain't even worth talking about. All right. He's done it all. In the NFL, even though I wasn't one of his biggest fans, whatever, I always pretty much rooted against him, never liked the Patriots or whatever, but I respect greatness. I respect goodness. I respect excellence, attention to detail. I respect all of that stuff. And even though I didn't root for him, I respect what he was able to do for as long as he was able to do it. So NFL ain't going to be quite right without him. My son sent me a meme today. I thought, okay, I was like, all right, you trying to be funny. It's one of them, this photo contains these statistics with these 2 people in it, or 3 people, or 4 people, or whatever. Because the most popular one is, I think they sent there's one with Kobe Bryant and Kwame Brown. See, these two individuals combined for 82 points in this 2005 win, over the Toronto Raptors. Of course, Kobe Bryant scored 81 and Kwame Brown scored 1. So between the two, they scored 82 points, right? So my son sent me a meme when the Cowboys and the Bucks, walked off the field about 2 weeks ago. In this photo, you see 7 Super Bowl championships, 3 league MVPs, 5 Super Bowl MVPs, and a whole bunch of other statistics. And it was Tom Brady and Dak Prescott. Of course, Dak Prescott don't have any of those accolades, so it's okay. It'd be real funny. But here's the comeback on that. Here's the pushback on that. You know what Dak could say? Yeah, that may be true, but today you're going to take this L and you're going to hold this L. And I hope it's the long one. And it was the long one, because it's the last thing he saw before he closed his eyes was the Dallas Cowboys scoring another touchdown. So, yeah, you might have all these accolades and Dak don't have any, but he was the last one to beat you. So, that's so he got that going for him. So if he don't do nothing else in the NFL, I was the one that closed Tom Brady's casket. So And I hope it's the long one that comes from life. Y'all should watch that. That's a movie with Eddie Murphy and Martin Lawrence. You know, they played Ray Gibson and Claude and Ray. You know, they went to jail for wrongful imprisonment or whatever. And he was telling him, "They're gonna take you a nap, and I hope it's the long one." So yeah, Tom Brady got the L, and it was the long one. That gave him the long one. So anyway, Tom Brady retired. So hats off, man. We're glad we was able to beat you before you cashed in your chips. So all right. So there were other coaching moves, and we're gonna get into the Cowboy stuff because y'all don't hear about this other stuff. But the Denver Broncos have selected Sean Payton, which I thought, wow, because it rumored that Sean Payton wanted like $20 million and all this kind of stuff. And of course, now a lot of people wasn't wanting the Denver Broncos job because you ain't got no draft picks and you got a $50 million quarterback that you stuck to for the next 2-3 years. Ain't got no draft picks to do nothing with. Well, and to get Sean Payton, you had to give up 2 draft picks. You had to give up a first round pick that I didn't even think that they had. But my boy RD had to tell me today that, yeah, well, they just got that pick from trading Bradley Chubb to the Miami Dolphins. They gave them a first round pick, which they traded away to the Saints. I know, in addition to a 2024 second round pick to get Sean Payton. Okay. So Sean Payton comes to the Broncos with really no first round pick this year, no second round pick next year, and a quarterback making a lot of money and had his worst statistical year of his career. But at least you get your $20 million because the Walmart clan got deep pockets. So we'll see how that works. But Sean Payton goes to the Denver Broncos. It was heard that he was their third choice because they was looking at Jim Harbaugh, for a third, but he told them no and went back to Michigan. So, secondly, D'Amico Ryans, star defensive coordinator for the San Francisco 49ers, takes the head football job at the Houston Texans, which is a surprising move because I don't know if I take the Houston Texans job news, how they did David Culley and how they did Lovie Smith, man, in 1 year wonders, 1 year. And then, I thought the team played hard for them and you take the job. But they did give him a 6-year deal. So we'll see how that goes. They got about 11 picks in this year's draft. So we'll see how that goes. So anyway, that's all there is for the league. And for the league's news and whatnot. So now for the stuff that y'all want to talk about, y'all want to hear about, we going right here. Bam! Cowboy news. All right. Cowboy news. Now, the thing I said first, I said, we got us a new play caller. No, we ain't hired an OC yet. But now the news came down today. And I think this is the first press conference, Jerry, or first news it's been had ever since we lost the game to the 49ers last Sunday. Jerry has emerged from his cocoon, and he says Mike McCarthy will call plays, which we kind of knew, but Jerry says it, so that's kind of the way the thing goes. Jerry has said that, so we'll see now that Mike McCarthy is going to call plays. So what does that mean? Because like I was telling you guys before, there was sort of I don't want to call it a power struggle because a lot of the people I've listened to have kind of pushed back against saying it was a power struggle, but it was like a difference in philosophies and how games were to be called. And of course, now Mike McCarthy calling plays. Now, what that's going to mean is going to mean a lot of it's going to be he's got that West Coast playbook. It's going to be a lot of like crossing routes, deep routes, none of those button hook routes and comebacks, which those how quarterbacks can throw a lot of interceptions because a lot of times the corners can read that stuff and they right on top of the receivers, because they can read that stuff. And usually when they catch it, they had to come back to the quarterback, and they don't get no yak or rack yards for that. But the West Coast, that means you get a lot of throws to the backside of the backfield, a lot of rollouts, a lot of sprint outs, a lot of short passes, a lot of screens, a lot of slants, crossers. And so a lot of deep stuff. There's a lot of their stuff is more horizontal as it is vertical. So you get a lot of what it is you'll have more of the field to cover. Now it won't be totally a West Coast offense because West Coast offense is sort of complicated, so they're not going to probably try to implement all of it in one year or whatever. But I would probably look for them to do the route concept should be a little easier to run. Okay, and then you get a lot of yak yards and rack yards and run after the catch, which you're not going to get a lot with the kind of stuff that Kellen was calling. So now he'll get to show his wares over in Los Angeles for the Chargers. Now I think it's going to be a good thing for him too, because first of all, he gets a better quarterback. Yeah, I'm saying Justin Herbert's a better quarterback than Dak, maybe marginally. He's got all of the physical tools, but we don't know if he has all of the intangible tools, because they've not won a playoff game. He's been in the league 3 years. By the time Dak had been in the league 3 years, he had a playoff win. He'd been to like 3 playoff games. Okay, he's only been to one, lost it in 3 years. So we'll see how that goes. But he's got a better quarterback, and he has a better stable of receivers to work with, because he's got Mike Williams, got Keenan Allen, the 2 receivers. He's got Austin Eckler, which I couldn't remember his name on my last video, has 107 catches out of the backfield. And Joe Lombardi's offense, of course, he got fired when they lost to the Jaguars, giving up a 27-0, 27-point lead, whatever. So it's interesting, because one of my criticisms of Kellen Moore is I didn't think you threw enough out of the backfield. Now, there were some games here and there. I thought he threw a nice game to him in the Minnesota game, because I think he had like a 40, 50-yard wheel route out the backfield that Dak just dropped that thing right out the sky on him, and he caught it in stride and got like a 50-yard touchdown out of that. But I didn't think Kellen used the backfield nearly enough. I think Tony Pollard had like 32 catches. Austin Eckler, who's probably the best pass catching back in the league, had 107. So if we see this year that Austin Eckler go from 107 catches down to, say, 55, we know he's been Kellened. So we'll see. But I think it's going to be a nice growing thing, because he's only been calling plays for 4 years. Now, that's not going to eat his lunch for that, but I thought we needed a more experienced play caller, so we'll see what happens with that. So we got a new play caller. Mike McCarthy will call plays, but we're still going to have an offensive coordinator who will put the offense together and but the play caller calls the plays. Now, it's more than just calling a series of plays. It's about calling them in the right sequence, and what are you trying to set up? And finally, you want to establish an identity. What kind of team are you trying to be? What do you want to be your bread and butter? And see, we never really had a bread and butter. Our best offense with Dak and with the offensive line and the skill set of players we have was if we ran the ball like 55%, 50 to 55%, and ran it and threw it 45 to 50% of the time. But a lot of times Kellen got too pass happy, and that's what things always would get off kilter, whatever. But so yeah, we got a new play caller. Okay. Now, additionally, we just hired an offensive line coach, and it's a man named Mike Solari. And I looked his name wrong. I was looking up Peter Scolari. That dude used to play in. I want to say he was in Bosom Buddies with Tom Hanks. I want to say he was with that in that. He's deceased now, but it's Mike Solari. Okay, he is 68 years old. Let me tell you how old this dude is. This dude's so old, he coached with Landry. Yeah, that Landry, Tom Landry. Tom Landry's last 2 years as a head coach with the Cowboys, which is 1987 and 88. Mike Solari was on his team. I don't know if he was like an assistant coach or quality control or whatever his role was. but he has been a offensive coordinator. He's been an offensive line coach in several places. He was an offensive line coach with the San Francisco 49ers in the Harbaugh Kaepernick years. The offensive line was pretty good. He was an offensive line coach for the Seattle Seahawks from 18 to 21. Got let go after the 21 season. Now those seasons from 18 to 21, they had some real good run offenses in those years, right? But they weren't ranked real well in pass protection. As a matter of fact, I think they were like I had it wrote down here. They were 19th, 30th, 28th, and 25th in pass defense rating, which means they were at the bottom of the league. That's why Russell Wilson was getting sacked so much. All right. So that's the bad side. The good side is that when all people that you've talked to or read about him, they said he's like a teacher. He's a fundamentals. He's an attention to details offensive line coach, which means he's more about, it ain't about, hitting the guy and it's about where your hands are supposed to be placed, where your feet supposed to be placed and stuff like that to get maximum, efficiency in your blocking techniques. So in essence, he might tell a Tyler Smith, like, hey, man, on your pass rushing sets, you might want to get your hands here instead of here in order that you can get better leverage and stuff like that. Those are attention to detail things. Remember, I've always said, for as much talent as the Cowboys have, they never really have had coaches that were really attention to detail coaches. Sometimes the devil is in the details. Sometimes where you placing your hands, how you placing your feet, how far apart your feet, your balance, and how far you getting down and stuff like that, and your stances and stuff like that. How far out wide you spread out from the guy next to you and whatever. Little things like that many times are the difference, but whether you give up a sack, give up a pressure, or you got a successful block. It's just sometimes it's the little things. And hopefully with the talented offensive line that we've got, and hopefully we'll pick up another guy or two in the draft, I think he'll do good. Incidentally, it's worth noting that Joe Philbin, I thought, did an excellent job last year. And I think maybe just because his contract was up and he was one of the holdovers, but I thought he had coached with Mike McCarthy before too. But somehow, I don't know, I thought, and I think the rankings were this year, the Cowboys ranked 14th in pass rush success rate ranking and number 11th in rushing blocking rate, whatever. So I thought and I thought he did real well with Terrence Steele before he got hurt, and I thought he had coached Tyler Smith real well before he got he left or whatever. So he got a lot to do to catch up with Joe Philbin, but if this guy's as attention to detail as they said, maybe he will make us improve from like a good level to an excellent level. So we'll see how it goes. All right. All right. So we also interviewed a offensive coordinator position today also. And so we interviewed a guy by the name of Jeff Mixon. He's the running backs coach, which he may end up being the running backs coach. We need one of them also. All right. He was the running backs coach / offensive coordinator for the Carolina Panthers. Just give you a brief history. Joe Brady was the offensive coordinator when Matt Rule took over at Carolina back in 2020. Okay, when he took the job leaving Baylor, but Jeff Mixon was the co-offensive coordinator and running backs coach for him at Baylor. So when he got the job from Baylor going to Carolina, he brought him with him as the running backs coach. And then he tagged Joe Brady as the offensive coordinator. Joe Brady, incidentally, was the offensive coordinator, wide receivers coach, and passing game coordinator, if you will, for the LSU Tigers in 2019 for that record-breaking year that Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson, Terrence Marshall, Thaddeus Moss, all those dudes, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, all those people that came to the NFL. That record-breaking year where Joe Burrow threw for 60 touchdown passes. Yeah, that Joe Brady was the offensive coordinator for them. So Matt Rule brought him in to coordinate his because he's from college and said, well, he's a college guy, so he's like, hey, and LSU and Baylor kind of got a connection because Dave Aranda, who's the defensive coordinator for LSU, left LSU and became the head coach at Baylor. So that's sort of like a between Baylor and LSU for some reason. I don't know why it is, but it just is. It's sort of a thing, right? So. But so anyway, so midway through last year, Joe Brady, the offense looking, pathetic, and um, Sam Darnold looking bad, and the offense looking bad after the first 3 games. They ended up firing Joe Brady, and they promoted Jeff Mixon to the offensive coordinator position. And then this year, when they ended up trading away. Mr. Wide receiver's name, Richie Anderson, and Christian McCaffrey. I thought that Jeff Mixon did a great job with Dante Foreman and Chuba Hubbard, who's the running backs left, and they almost made the playoffs. Steve Wilkes had them boys, and along with Mixon had them playing pretty good, man. And a couple of games, I saw them run it down people's throats, man. So the Cowboys interviewed him. So it may just be just a token interview to satisfy Rooney Rule because Jeff Mixon is African American. But I think they might want to look at him as an offensive coordinator. If he don't really take that job, he could come in there and be the running backs coach. We need one of them also, right? And because they hired a new coach in Carolina, Frank Reich, and he's gonna be bringing his own people, right? I was kind of hoping they would looked at Steve Wilkes for that job. I thought they played awful hard for that dude, man. But you know how that go, man. It's who you know and that kind of stuff and whatever, man. It's. I thought Steve Wilkes did a good job, for them, and they because when they fired Matt Rule, you thought that team was gonna go, be like 3-13. No, they was almost in the playoffs. He had them boys playing. They beat Tampa Bay, almost beat them twice, But anyway, they looking at Jeff Mixon to see, and like I said, if he don't get that job, I was hoping they would seriously look at him as the running backs coach because I thought he did an admirable job in both positions in that regard. So now, here's what I'd like to see. Now, I've told you in my last video, and we're getting ready to get out of here. I would like for the Cowboys to seriously take a look at Todd Monson, who's the offensive coordinator of the Georgia Bulldogs. And if you notice a lot more in the NFL, they're bringing a lot of more college concepts into the game. So, and like I said, what Todd Monson got a nice resume, back-to-back national championships, had Stetson Bennett IV looking like, he was in the Heisman. That dude was a walk-on, basically. He went to junior college and walked on. They had Daniels, JT Daniels, who was supposed to be like the 5-star dude, and he beat him out, made him have to transfer to West Virginia. And Monson just kept working with him. He was like a 3-star candidate. And that dude threw for like 4,000 yards and like 30 touchdowns this year. 25 touchdowns this year. And they averaged 41 points a game. So I was hoping they get a nice look at Todd Monson. He's got some NFL ties too. I think he's coached on offensive coordinator for the Cleveland Browns when they had Freddie Kitchens, which means they had Baker Mayfield. And it seemed like to me he's with the New Orleans Saints. I did have that looked up, but anyway, so he's got some NFL ties too. So you'd want a guy with a little bit of college, a little bit of pro, a little bit of bit, so you can kind of mingle the two and stuff like that. So. But yeah, so I talked about that on my last video. But here's the one I really want us to take a look at. I would really like the Cowboys to take a look at Brian Johnson. Now, if you don't know who that dude is, go Google him. Brian Johnson was a former quarterback for the University of Utah back from 2005 to 2008. Okay. Now, Kyle Whittingham is the coach of Utah. He took over after Urban Meyer left to go to Florida. Okay. Kyle Whittingham, along with Brian Johnson, was the guy that led Utah for that win in the Super Bowl over Alabama back in January 2009. They still talk about that in Utah too, even like 15 years later. They still talk about that. Yeah, we beat Alabama. Yeah, dude, that was like 15 years ago. We done won like 5 national championships since then. Chill out, man. But anyway, but Brian Johnson was lighting us up, man, in that game. So he left there, went back to Utah, was an offensive coordinator, quarterbacks coach from I think like 10 through 13. Then he left there and went to Mississippi State, where he was the quarterback coach of Dak Prescott. Yeah. So he got a relationship with Dak Prescott. So he was there from 14 to 16, junior year and senior year. That's why Dak Prescott, he had them in number one. You know, he was the quarterback coach. And he left there and went to, was it the Miami Dolphins? No, the Florida Gators. He left there and went to the Florida Gators. Because when, God, what is his daggum name? The head coach of the Florida Gators at that time. He was the head coach of Mississippi State. So he got the job at Florida after he left Mississippi State. He brought him over to Florida to be the offensive coordinator, which he was the offensive coordinator there from like 19 to like 20. Okay. So when Florida was like, number 2 in the country and with Kyle Trask, and that was Brian Johnson. All right. So yeah. God, I cannot think of that guy's name. What is that guy's name? You know me and names. Here we go. I'm gonna find that guy's name. But yeah. And then so currently Brian Johnson is the quarterback coach for the Philadelphia Eagles. Now I'm looking at the development that he has with Jalen Hurts, and he's under Sean Steichen. A lot of people think he might be on his way to getting a head coaching job. And so he he was he is mostly responsible for the development that Jalen Hurts had from last year to this year. Now he became the quarterbacks coach for the Eagles starting in 21. So last year and this year, and you see the development that Jalen Hurts has increased in the last couple of years. A lot of that's due to the relationship and the quarterback and coaching of Brian Johnson. Now, what I like about that is that he has had some relationships with quarterbacks with similar skill sets. Jalen Hurts' skill set and Dak Prescott's skill sets are similar. It's just that Jalen is younger than him, and you wouldn't expect Dak to run as much as he as much as him. But Dan Mullen, that's his name. Good night. I could not think of that dude's name. Dan Mullen, that's the Mississippi State coach, man. Me and names, man. I should have just wrote it down. But yeah, so you got a quarterback with similar skill sets as Jalen, a little older, probably a little more polished as a passer, and he's worked with him before. Okay, so I would love for them to interview Brian Johnson for the offensive coordinator position. Now I was reading about him, and he was saying that he expects to. Because now Sean Steichen, I think that's how his name is pronounced. Who's the offensive coordinator for the Eagles, gets a head coaching job, but there ain't but one left, and that's the Indianapolis Colts. And it's believed if Sean Steichen goes up to Indianapolis and takes a head coaching job, that they will promote Brian Johnson to the OC, like that. But if Steichen don't get a job, Wouldn't you rather be the offensive coordinator for the Dallas Cowboys than be the quarterback coach for the Philadelphia Eagles? I'm just saying. And you get to work with a guy you've worked with before. You worked with him in college, and he's got a skill set similar to the dude you just worked with. It's easy freaking peasy, right? So that's a guy I really want them to look at. Brian Johnson, man, the quarterback coach of the Philadelphia Eagles. So it's Todd Monson and Brian Johnson. And then additionally, I know I just mentioned him, and I know he didn't have a good go of it at Carolina, but I'd like for them to take a look at Joe Brady. Joe Brady, look, man, if you saw that offense that LSU was putting forth in 2019, man, that dude they forgot how to coach. I just think that Carolina didn't have a whole lot for him to work with. You work with Sam Darnold. You got a couple of receivers, but the offensive line wasn't good. You just didn't have a whole lot to work with, man. So I think with us, if we get us another receiver to go with CD Lamb and running backs and stuff, if we draft us a running back. We may even get Brian, dude's name from Arizona, the dude from Houston, Brian Cooks. Man, we go get him because he wanted to be out of there last year. Go get Cooks to go what we got. Keep T.Y. Hilton, keep C.D. Lamb. Hopefully Michael Gallup, who had a procedure, I think yesterday or today, to go in that knee. I knew something wasn't right with dude. I went in and did some arthroscopic, which basically is a cleanup on that left knee. So we'll see what happens with that. But yeah, I'd like for them to take a look at Joe Brady too, because Joe Brady, man, is right now he's currently the quarterback coach of the Buffalo Bills. So we'll see how that goes. And of course, you'd rather be the offensive coordinator than right now. When Daboll left them to go to the New York Giants, they moved Ken Dorsey, who was the quarterback's coach, up to OC. And then they brought in Joe Brady, who had just got fired from the Carolina Panthers, and brought him to the Buffalo Bills. Of course, the Buffalo Bills has like a number 3 ranked offense this year. Yeah, I think they had. They had they averaged 27 points per game, which is number 3 in the league. They averaged 394 yards a game, which is number 2 in the league. They averaged, they threw the ball like 60% of the time and rushed it 40% of the time, which that's not good. But of course, Buffalo don't run the football because they don't really have any running backs. And they did draft James Cook this year. But yeah, they passed it on 59.44% of the time. They averaged like 261 yards passing, which is 5th in the league. Do a lot of interceptions. Number 20 percentage, 2.6% of interceptions. So, I mean, you got some of that going on too. And Joshua is kind of a turnover machine. But I just think Joe Brady's just phenomenal, man. That year was just so good. I think he warrants at least a talk to. And then finally, I'd like for them to get a look at Greg Roman, who's the offensive coordinator for the Baltimore Ravens, but he's not there now. But you see the offense they installed for Lamar Jackson. Not saying that Dak is Lamar Jackson, but what I like is I like an offensive coordinator, quarterback coach, offensive system that molds their offense around the offensive skill sets that your quarterback has. That way you're not asking him to do stuff that, he's not great at, So I thought he developed an offense that was perfect for Kaepernick when he was back in. So Greg Roman and Mike Solari were on the same coaching staff back in like 2012, back with the San Francisco 49ers. So that would be a nice relationship there. They would know each other. You want some continuity on the offensive staffs. Offensive line coach, offensive coordinator, that sort of stuff. We worked together before, that sort of thing. But yeah, Greg Roman was the offensive coordinator for that. And of course, he went to Baltimore when they got Lamar Jackson. And he developed an offense that perfectly fit Lamar Jackson, turned him into an MVP. So, I mean, he could get the most out of that. look, I've been one to be on record saying, man, I don't think that the offense that they ran with Dak, it suits Dak. And Dak has really fit into a square peg because if you watched him at Mississippi State, he ran some type of offense that Jalen runs. There's a lot of zone reads, a lot of misdirection, a lot of rollouts, a lot of quarterback draws, quarterback powers, a lot of that stuff. And so when he got to the Cowboys, they basically gave him Tony Romo's offense because you had Scott Linehan, and he didn't change the offense. They may have put in like a zone replay, like they're down the goal line or something, added in there, but they didn't run like an offense that suited his talent. So he had to adapt to that offense, right? So it would be good to have a guy that was like, okay, you can run this. Let's run some of this. Let's put some of this into the into the repertoire here. Let's see what happens. But so I would love for them to get a look see at Greg Roman. If there's nothing more, to just pick his brain while they're interviewing him. How would you do Dak Prescott? How would you work him if you had a guy with his skill set? Because obviously, if he's going to interview for the job, if you like me, you're gonna know everything you need to know about your potential employer. You come in there, you want to know everything they've done. Oh, yeah, y'all drafted such and such in this year, and this guy in this year. This guy had this many yards passing and this many touchdowns. You're supposed to know that and have watched film on them. So when they ask you, hey, how would you coach Dak Prescott in some of these plays? And then you will get some ideas, and you might not even hire him, but I think that's kind of dirty pool. But people do it all the time. But I think Greg Roman deserves a look-see to see what he would do. So. But anyway, man, that's it, man. Cowboys interviewed OC, hired an offensive line coach. Mike McCarthy gonna call plays. We'll see how they go. And we're running our West Coast offense, and we need to get some more players to implement that. Dak gonna get extended. I don't even afraid we talked about that. Yeah, Dak getting an extension, but not because he did so well, but because we are we $7 million over the salary cap, and his cap hit for 2023 is going to be like $49 million. So what they're going to do is probably extend him, push that can further down the road. Because I think his is 49. I think DeMarcus Lawrence's is like 27. I think Zeke's is like 16, 15, 16, something like that. So it's like $70 million between them three players. The salary cap ain't but like 224 million, I think. And that what it is? Yeah, 224 million. I think it just went up from like 209 to like 224 or something. I think it's like 224, 225, somewhere in there. So a third of your salary cap is going to three players, basically. So yeah, Dak probably get an extension, which means he'll probably, so he can get him more players. He can get him some wide receivers. They can go get Brandon Cooks, somebody like that, So, and I think we can get Brandon Cooks and draft us a wide receiver. That Johnson guy, I think his name is it DeJuan Johnson? I think it's out of TCU. Dude, nice, man. He's a hometown dude too. So, oh yeah, Brian Johnson is from Texas too. He actually grew up with Jalen Hurts. Jalen Hurts is from Houston, Texas. So he knew Jalen Hurts when he was a kid. So he's got an extended relationship with him and an extended relationship with Dak Prescott. So go look at Brian Johnson. But that's all I got for y'all for today. February 1st, 2023, and all that stuff. And of course, the big news of the day: Tom Brady retires. And I'm not gonna say good riddance, but he had a great career, man. And 5 years from now, he'll be in Canton, first ballot. Of course, now some folks are saying because he's involved in the Deflategate and Spygate or whatever, he shouldn't be a Hall of Famer. I think that's just stupid talk, man. When you look at the numbers that dude put up, man, ain't no doubt that dude a Hall of Famer, first ballot. Okay, but that's all I got, man, from the desk. Uncle Fred, please comment, and subscribe. Become a part of the Uncle Fred Sports Experience. I guarantee you will not be disappointed. We'll catch you guys on the next one. God bless.